So what are you trying to unlock here?
Yeah, I've got a tinfoil hat somewhere around here.
Does it help?
Now, these days, especially with AI, it's very hard to tell whether you're having a conversation with like a bot or a server script or a person.
Have you come across that Gavin Wood chatbot that's trained on our interviews?
In some sense, we're still talking about identity. We want to identify different individuals, but crucially, we don't want to match them up within different contexts. We don't want to track them across their various facets of their lifestyle. If you are at all privacy conscious, this is not something that you particularly want shared around and used to identify you.
Polkadot Citizenship app. Is this related?
I don't think I would immediately jump into altering OpenGov.
Speaking of, people die.
That's true, they do. Yes.
So, how does the system know?
The launch team wishes you good luck and Godspeed.
Space Monkeys, blasting off with Dr. Gavin Wood. Again, we are here to discuss his Proof of Personhood project today, something we've heard a little bit about, but we don't know a lot about, and we have him here to discuss it. Gavin, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back, Jay.
It's cool to see you again. What, you've been like shredding, sick pal around the world? Like, what's going on there?
I was in Italy for a couple of weeks.
Cool.
So yeah, doing my annual mountain trip.
Ooh, I didn't realize you did that.
Yeah, I've been doing it for some time now. I usually go to Switzerland, but this time it was on the Italian side of the border.
I see. You snowboard or ski?
Snowboard. I do a bit of skiing too, but prefer snowboard.
Snowboarding, okay. Personally, for me, I'm an adventurous guy, I think, but the mountain freaks me out. Like, I feel like too scared to do it. Yeah, like I snowboarding bad at, skiing, I like have to like sit down and scoot. If it gets, I don't know, I feel like I'm like gonna fall over the edge or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
I enjoy it, really. It's nice getting some fresh air. And I'm kind of lazy. I don't like doing, too much, like hiking up a mountain.
Yeah.
Whereas with the chairlifts and the nice little cafes,
Yes.
getting a hot chocolate every other run.
Yes.
It's actually kind of a nice break.
Do you listen to tunes well?
If I do, I ride a lot better. I don't always, for whatever reason, but
yeah.
I mean, I was actually listening to the devs call as I was coming down the mountain, so I was not listening to tunes, but listening to Basti.
Wait, while we were on the call?
Yeah.
So you did your little bit and then you hit the slope?
I had to, because it was like right at the time where the lifts were closing. It was like, I think 4 p.m.
Okay.
So I did like 20 minutes or so. And then it was like, I gotta get down the mountain now, so.
Oh, I see. That's sick.
Yeah.
That was a good call. I like that. Pretty well established organization now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's good. I enjoyed it.
You didn't catch any mountain action here, right? In Vancouver. So we're in Vancouver right now. Yeah.
Any action?
I mean, on the mountains is what I mean. the big rocky ones.
The big rocky ones.
Yeah. Yes, this is what I'm trying to tell you here. Okay.
No, I only arrived a few days ago. I've been basically tired all of the time due to the dramatic time zone shift.
Yeah, wild, huh? Well, these help a lot. We're at 33 acres. Shout out to them.
Quite nice beer.
Yeah, it is nice.
Really.
Yeah,
really
they know
nice.
how to do it out here.
But I mean, Americans really like their strong beers, right? This is one of the lightest, and it's still 5.3%.
Yeah. Well, remember, we're in Canada here now, right? So there's a bit of a pissing contest, I think. It gets pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean, it must. I don't know.
Yeah, you come to Toronto. Toronto's doing all the light beers now. You can get like a 1%.
I mean, I can stretch to a little more than 1, but I'm thinking like 4.1, 4.3. This is for me is like a kind of a sweet spot. It's like you can drink a fair few beers, you're not going to feel bad the next day.
Yeah,
but it still has that bit of a kick.
Yeah, I hear you.
Whereas when you get to like, I mean, okay, this isn't too bad, 5, whatever, but like you get to like some of this like 6.5, 7.5. It's one in there 9.5.
Oh, I know.
It's like, whoa, easy, tiger,
Yeah, it's like you get the hangover before you finish the beer. Man. Okay, well, like I want to talk about this proof of personhood thing because it's it's getting a little freaky out there online. You have a lot of people motivated to identify individuals. But you're kind of doing a different approach here. You're doing proof of personhood, which is different than, hey, here's Gavin Wood, here are his credentials, here's where he's moving, here's what he's buying, all that. I think in Web 2, like, we probably all have avatars, or maybe multiple avatars, but they probably know like who Jay is, where he is, what he's doing. This is what I imagine. I don't know if that's true, but I imagine that.
I mean, I think
you could pinpoint me if you wanted to.
I mean, any one of these organizations whose services you use regularly, it's just part of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they're probably going to be able. They probably have a pretty good idea about where you are at any time, what you're doing,
and what I'm doing. So that's a little freaky. What about you? I mean, do you take extra actions to evade, or do you think it's just kind of hopeless?
Yeah, I've got a tinfoil hat somewhere around here.
Does it help?
No, I mean, I do less than I should, but I don't know. I guess I'd maybe take some precautions. Maybe I like put airplane mode on when I'm not always on an airplane. Try and use different usernames, different email addresses, and so forth for the different services. But at the end of the day, you can become a bit of a digital hermit, or you can give up some privacy, at least in the Web 2 mentality.
You're trying to make this even more serious with they call it the WorldCoin project, right? Biomarkers. I mean, obviously we do this on our phone and stuff already.
Yeah.
Right? And I think those Apple goggles, I think they do retinas, actually. You will have a totally different approach, though. This proof of personhood. Can you kind of define compare proof of personhood with identity, maybe?
So proof of personhood, or what I've been calling individuality, separate to identity, or at least it's, in fact, one of the sort of realizations I've sadly come to is that they both exist on a spectrum, but identity really is pushing towards one end of the spectrum where the goal really is to have an objective and universal marker for an individual, so that you could very easily get an identity for the individual regardless of which context they're operating in. So it might be, classic thing would be cross-site cookies, where different websites want to use the same cookies in order to track you across as you visit different sites and different contexts, and they kind of know it's still you. This is something that, at least in Web 2, we've sort of bristled a bit against. Another example would be like passports, right? Credit cards, name and birth date and birth city. They're all ways of sort of nailing down a specific universal global identifier for a specific individual. Now, individuality is rather not trying to nail down an individual and track them across different contexts. Rather, check that this, let's say, digital. Let's say we're having a conversation over the internet, right? Now, these days, especially with AI, it's very hard to tell whether you're having a conversation with like a bot or a server script or a person.
Sure.
So it's really about trying to identify whether it's the person or the thing at the other end of your conversation that you appear to be conversing with is a person. Now, the problem is that you can say, well, it's a person, but it's a person running a script, and maybe it's the same person running 10,000 different scripts. And then it's like, is it really a person or is it a script? So what we really need to be able to do is to distinguish between individuals, so that if the same person runs 10,000 scripts, it's possible you can actually see that, yes, it's still a person, but it's the same person running all these scripts. Like, in some sense, we're still talking about identity. We want to identify different individuals, but crucially, we don't want to match them up within different contexts. We don't want to track them across their various facets of their lifestyle. Rather, we care, given our context, about enumerating the different individuals, and within the context, knowing if it's the same individual that's coming back to us.
Okay, so in this model, do identifiers matter at all? Like, does it matter if somebody's over the age of 13, or if they're male or female? Or is that just not part of what you're trying to achieve here?
In principle, you could attach information to an individual. The key thing that we're not trying to do, and we try to do to the minimal possible extent, is to provide a universal global identifier for an individual that can be used to track them across different contexts.
I see.
Different applications, different parachains, different smart contracts, whatever.
But a third party could, in principle, add identifiers
Yes, but they would only be able to do it within their context.
I see.
And the idea is that they wouldn't be able to, even if they had sort of control over two contexts, they would still not be able to link any individual from one context into the other context. And for this, we use ZK stuff, right? We use advanced cryptography.
Okay, let's get into how you're going to do it in a second. But it might be interesting to understand why you're attempting to do this. I mean, we have decentralized identifier protocols already. And obviously, there's a lot of infrastructure we were talking about in the Web 2 world or the real world already. So what are you trying to unlock here?
So decentralized identifiers generally are there to provide identities. You prove that you have a particular identity, generally with an identity provider, which is generally centralized. Mm-hmm. And then you're able to prove that based on that authentication, based on that decentralized, that identity provider, that you hold some attribute with them.
Sure.
This has a few downsides. The main one being you need the identity provider.
Yeah.
So like whether that's a government identity system or GitHub or whatever, like there's still a centralized agency that is authenticating everyone. And if they are corrupted or incompetent, or it's the general thing, I'm like, well, it's centralized and therefore it's broken. Yeah. So decentralized identity systems, like they're not actually decentralized. I mean, they're decentralized in the sense that they provide infrastructure to help centralized identity systems provide their service out into Web3, into a decentralized.
Yeah.
The fundamental thing, the little nugget in the middle that we actually need, which is individuality, this is still centralized. Like it still has to be centralized. And what it is that we're trying to do with this Polkadot Proof of Personhood is firstly to set identity aside for a moment and say, right, that's all very well, and there are use cases for it, but that's not the problem we're trying to solve. And then come with simply a robust, resilient Web3 solution for individuality. I'll give you the Web 2 equivalent.
Okay.
Of this, just so you've got a solid idea. Captures. So the point of a capture isn't to identify an individual. You can't identify an individual by the fact that they can solve a minor puzzle, right? The point is of a capture to make sure that the person on the other end of the line is a person and not a script or a bot or an AI thing or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, captures in and of themselves, are a very, very basic individuality mechanism, right? It's like, I can do many captures if I try. Can I do 1 billion captures? No, probably not. I can definitely do 10. I could probably do 50 before I get really, really bored and sick of doing them. And that's kind of what they're counting on, right? The attack isn't that they will do it 50 times. The attack is that they do it 1 million times or 1 billion times and screw up all their servers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's with Web3, and especially when we talk about economic elements of Web3, like financial elements of Web3, like, for example, free transactions or UBI or whatever else, this becomes very important to do in a resilient way. We can no longer do it in a capture way. It's like, you get $1 every time you solve a capture. Well, you're going to end up with capture farms.
Yeah, totally.
So we need to do it in a manner that is much more resilient than what Web 2 does. Now, if Web 2 needs something more resilient, what they do, well, they resort to SMS, right? Identity. Because now suddenly you've got a globally unique identifier for an individual, their phone number, email account, right? Credit card number, And then if we're talking hardcore, social security number, passport,
Sure.
These all compromise the user. They compromise it because social security number or a passport identifier or even a credit card are trackable across different contexts, different websites, different service providers, different organizations, even and especially the government, right? Different governments. If you are at all privacy conscious, this is not something that you particularly want shared around and used to identify you.
Yeah. Hard to get away from, though.
Very.
Now, help me understand this, because I saw in the Nova Wallet 2024 year-end wrap-up, they had a bunch of icons because they have so many great projects. One of the icons Polkadot Citizenship app. Is this related?
Yes.
Okay. So citizenship, when I think about citizenship, I think, okay, a government giving me identifiers. There's all this identifying information the government knows, and I use it to open bank accounts and whatnot.
Yeah.
It feels different than what you're describing. Yet, perhaps it's still a sense of citizenship. Can you square this for me?
As a citizen, at least in my mind,
Yeah.
citizens are fungible.
Oh.
To become a citizen, it's an attribute of someone. It doesn't in and of itself lead to an identifier. It's kind of like, I am male, I am over 18. Like, these are all attributes. And I'm a citizen of the UK, right? These are all attributes of me. They do not inherently give me an identity. Now, admittedly, yes, citizens often have some sort of identifier associated with them, or rather, the concept of being a citizen and the things that you get if you are a citizen can often have an identifier with them. For example, as a citizen of the UK, I'm eligible for a British passport, and a British passport comes with an identifier.
Sure.
But citizens of the UK, at least, do not have an identifier associated with them per se.
Really? Okay.
No. The identifier is associated with the passport, or perhaps with a birth certificate.
Yeah.
Birth certificates generally have a serial number, but not with. You can get like a new birth certificate, for example, if you change your name. Well, not change your name. You get adopted, right? They'll give you a new birth certificate. That's got a different certificate number. So the number doesn't follow me; it follows the certificate. And if I change my passport, there's a new passport number. That number doesn't follow me; it follows that specific document, right?
Yeah.
There isn't actually a number that tracks me as a citizen. There is no giant citizens database. Well, as far as I know, probably maybe there is, but I don't think so. I don't think the UK IT infrastructure is quite that advanced, to be honest.
Okay.
Similarly, like health cards, health insurance cards. Yeah, there might be a number associated with a person's health insurance, but again, if they don't, for whatever, apply for the health insurance, they don't get that number.
I see. Yeah.
Citizenship is really an attribute. And that's kind of the point. It's like you can, by demonstrating you're a person, gain the quality of citizenship, which gives you some rights and sort of, though not really, some responsibilities.
Yeah, I was just going to say that you get benefits, but also sometimes there's obligations, like tax obligations, I suppose. In some places you have military obligations, things like this, right?
That's right. The concept of our citizenship, the obligations are not really existent. I mean, what's the most that could happen? Your citizenship is revoked, right? So it's like,
yeah, right.
So in some sense, the threat is toothless until citizenship is actually valuable. But there are some ideas about how it might become valuable in the future, and then once it is valuable, then perhaps there can actually be reasonable responsibilities.
Yeah, so you're talking about citizenship of a network state.
Essentially, yes.
What does a Polkadot citizen look like, and what does a Polkadot state look like?
I don't know. I mean, I guess just a person. I mean, in fact, although the Proof of Personhood mechanism is hosted by Polkadot, the intention is not for it to be a Polkadot-centric facility. The intention is for it to be a Web3 facility. And in attempting this, we'll be sort of really pushing the Snowbridge, Ethereum, Hyperbridge, Ethereum integration, and trying to provide it as a service across Web3 as best as we can.
Oh, cool.
So it's really more about Web3 citizenship than Polkadot.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So I'm a citizen of the internet, of the connected Web3.
And I mean, that's the kind of the way that we've done this. It's totally open, totally transparent.
Yeah.
Which means we need Polkadot's very cheap block space to be able to do this. But beyond that, it's like, well, in principle, if you want to reevaluate everything on another blockchain, you can do, and then you can call it, you can feel that it's like your citizenship as well,
Right.
But I mean, we do it on Polkadot because it's cheap and easy.
Yeah, and secure.
But it's in terms of the prior information, the axioms and the prior information, it's all totally open. So if you believe that the axioms are reasonable, then you can inspect the prior information and you should come to exactly the same conclusion we do about who are the citizens.
Yeah. Okay. So you could have a superstructure like a network state, but you can also have smaller organizations all reliant on this individuality.
In principle.
Yeah. Knowing that you're dealing with people that have real meaty stakes in the world.
And knowing that rather than having to trust that, there is some government passport issuer that is operating correctly, or there is some oracleization agent that's operating correctly.
Sure.
Or that there's some magic combination of the various different point systems of like GitHub and whether they've got more than 100 transactions from their account and all the various other bits. Instead of all of this, you can just actually look at the rules by which we, essentially our personhood games, convince yourself that the game is probably quite a reasonable way of finding a person, of determining whether someone is a person.
Yeah.
Essentially a reverse Turing test. And then look at the information coming in from the internet and find that actually, given the axioms, combine it with the information, this probably is a person. Like, you don't need to trust anyone.
And I'm sure it's a sliding scale too, right? Like you can be more sure that it's a person with more games, personhood games.
So sort of, but the point of it is to provide a very clear threshold by which, beyond this threshold, we are confident that this is a person. Kind of like in academia, where you've got like a null hypothesis or whatever, and you say, well, we've done some experimentation, we've done some trials, and from the results, we do some statistical analysis, and we believe 96% confident that this is a person, or that is an orange, or this null hypothesis is in fact false. And it's like, you're not 100% confident. There's always that 4% that is like, well, maybe it's not the case. But in academia, we say, well, actually, beyond 95%, we just sort of accept that it's probably fine. Right?
I think it's the same odds as real world. Sometimes I'm talking to somebody and I think, is this really a person? They're moving, but Okay, so this is cool. You mentioned a few use cases for this: free transaction or a transaction quota, right? If you know it's a person and it's not a script, then you can give them some gas to work around a network. A UBI, so we're talking about doling out resources. I guess voting and governance changes when you have personhood. Right now, the best is skin in the game, as you designed OpenGov. But maybe it's not the best for all use cases, for all organizations, right?
I don't think I would immediately jump into altering OpenGov.
Hell no, it's working really well.
But but I think we can definitely start doing some interesting experiments on how OpenGov might be augmented or supplemented with personhood-based organizations and mechanisms. One of the ones that I quite like to try out is just say, right, well, we keep the main treasury just as it is, but we set up a sort of sub-treasury with, let's say, 500k dot in it, and say it works just like the regular treasury. You can put like proposals for spending in there, but it's one person, one vote.
Yeah, this is the way to test it for sure. Yeah, that's cool. Or you could do it also based on how active you've been in governance before, or something like this.
Yeah, how many proposals you previously voted on actually not only got accepted, but got accepted, and then the funds actually got released at the end of it. Yeah,
okay, so now we're talking about reputation, which is a big one too. Reputation systems on chain, I'm kind of leery of personally, but obviously there's a place for them, especially in small organizations.
Yeah, I mean, I'd lump this less into it is a form of reputation, but I would probably say it's like a well-focused reputation system, in that we are looking at one specific metric, and that metric is quite well associated with our outcome.
Yes,
if our outcome is we want money to be things to be passed and money to be released, then what we do is we check to see, in your previous voting, how many things did you vote on that were successful and the money was released.
I see, okay.
And so the more you do, the more we actually take you seriously.
Yeah, this is different than like a general reputation system where all these different aspects are applied to an individual. Yeah, I see. What about justice?
So oracleization of statements, I think, is also a very interesting avenue for personhood.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? Oracleization of statements, you said?
Yeah, so we can imagine court system, like court system. I mean, court systems are basically oracleizations of statements, right? So you generally have two parties, and they argue over the meaning of a statement. So if it's a civil case, they will generally say, well, look, there was a contract between us. And I think in this circumstance it means this, and they think in this circumstance it means that.
Yeah.
And we want a judge or whoever to come along and tell us which one of these is true. Right? But it's essentially oracleization of truth. Right? It's like, what does this statement mean in this context? And this is why, smart contracts are kind of cool, because the computer, they're unambiguous. The computer tells us what the thing means.
Right.
Well, the problem is that a lot of things can't be expressed very effectively in these terms. What's the concept of reasonable? A lot it's often drawn upon by legal contracts, and it kind of has a meaning. Most people will sort of know roughly what reason means if they're given a couple of examples. Which given an example, is this reasonable or not? There will inevitably be. Some people that think it's reasonable, other people that probably don't.
Yeah.
And then what do we do? Well, we select one at random, or we select a few at random and take the majority, or we just let everybody vote and we work out the majority rules or whatever.
Yeah.
There's generally ways that we can canvass opinion in a one person, one vote mechanism and determine some degree of truth. Now, I think it was Von York that said truth isn't determined by majority vote. And, it's a fair point. But unfortunately, a lot of the time, we do want a sort of version of the truth that is determined by majority vote. We do want the popular truth.
We do, yeah.
And this is what we can't do this without proof of personhood. Like, just anything with the word popular in it, we can't do without proof of personhood.
Right, we don't know what is popular, because it can easily be botted, and yeah, totally, that's right. Okay, that's great. And one more thing, it kind of has to do with reputation, kind of has to do with justice, but with individuality, now you can also have an important part of society, which is punishment and ostracization. Something funny that happens is in this open system is we have people who are griefing the system, and they're always going to be part of the system. We can't keep them out.
That's right.
Or in the real world, if somebody's being an asshole, we simply walk away, and they're not allowed where we are.
That's right.
It's kind of, I don't know morally if it's how you feel about that, but this opens the door to that as well.
I think there are certainly circumstances where it can be advantageous. I'll give you one example: chat rooms.
Chat rooms.
At the moment, if you got people in chat rooms just being dicks, I mean, you can give them a warning, you can ban them, but generally speaking, it's the internet. They just sign up with a different ID, come in the chat room.
Sure.
Still a dick. It's like you can't get like Twitter, very much so.
My God.
So I think I mean, it's it's fine, people want to be dicks, people can be dicks, but if you want to, I don't know, if the desire is to have a curated forum, and you happen to be the group of people who is behind the curated forum, it's very useful to have a tool to help you manage dicks or dickish behavior. So keep it open, but not open to dicks.
Nice. Totally.
And the thing is, as I say, there are a couple of ways of doing this. One of them is straight on identity. It's look, give us your SMS number, give us an SMS verification, phone number. Sign up with a, I don't know, credit card or passport or whatever. But this is all super hardcore. What we would like is a really lightweight, prevalent, ubiquitous, and easy way of saying, right, look, you don't have to give up any of your privacy. You just give us a contextual alias for our context.
Oh, I see,
and as long as we haven't seen you before and know you're a dick, then come on in.
I got you.
But it's the idea is that this contextual alias is strong, which means it's really hard, not impossible, nothing's impossible, but really hard for you to generate, 5, 10, 100 of these contextual aliases, all for this context.
Okay. What's funny about this conversation is I keep sliding into identity. when I just kind of brought that topic to the table again, I was thinking about an identified individual instead of just individuality. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I keep sliding over like that.
I mean, the funny thing is, as I say, they are on a spectrum because
Right.
there is an identifier, right? What I've called a contextual alias, right? And this is a fundamental part of individuality. But the point is, there can be many contexts, and they all have alias. You have an alias in every context. It's kind of like you can imagine like a massive party, right? Lots of different rooms. And in each room, you wear you have a name tag, right? But your name tag automatically changes depending on which room you're in. You wear like a mask so people can't like recognize your face.
I see.
And then if the different people if the different managers of the rooms want to like say, watch out for John, he's a dick. Like it's all very they can make sure that John doesn't come back into their room, but what they can't do is say to someone else in a different room, watch out for John, because that's a different room and you have a different name in that room.
So I walk into a new room. I am a person, but I have no reputation. I have no identity. But that builds over time. That alias builds up.
Yeah. So it's not really ostracization in a general sense, in a really strong sense. You're not ostracized from the entire party, right? You're ostracized from the room in which the people who run the room decide they don't want to see you again.
Got it.
Right? But you can still enter any other room like anyone else.
You're calling them DIMs. Decentralized Identity...
Individuality.
Decentralized Individuality Markers?
Mechanisms.
Mechanisms. These are games to determine that one is an individual. And the first one was like tattoos.
Yep.
Let's start there and let's roll down the line. What's that all about? Tattoos.
Right. So
not your first foray into tattoos.
It's not. Yeah. The Kusama Society.
Yes.
This was like a social experiment, the Kusama Society, but it was something that I really did. Although I didn't have proof of personhood in my mind in the same sense that I have now back then, I did very much believe that it would be a very helpful piece of the puzzle if indeed the people would bother doing this. Like I really wanted to know, is this just mad? Is this just crazy? Is anyone actually going to get a tattoo because the blockchain tells them to?
Yeah.
And it turned out that they did.
They did. Yeah.
Right? But the purpose of it is really to provide a sort of grounding base, because the nice thing about doing the tattoo DIM is that you don't already need a base of individuals. Okay, that's not quite true. But it's not nearly so problematic if you don't have a base of pre-proven individuals. With the other DIMs 2 and 3 that we've come up with, it's very helpful if you kind of already seeded the system with some sort of accounts that probably represent individuals. Okay, so specifically, how does it work? The game, so we can talk about the axioms, right? So the axioms are like the rules of the game, right? And the idea is that if you believe the axioms do as they are intended, if you believe it's a reasonable game, then given the input data, which is transparent, open, it's on-chain, you can come to the same conclusions about who is a person, who isn't a person. So the game, the axioms, you provide evidence, so both photographic and video of a tattoo being done. Okay, probably AI is going to nix this in the next 5 years.
But it's a fun one anyway.
Evidence gets easy to do. So
Yeah.
probably this is a fairly temporary decentralized individuality mechanism.
Yeah.
But as I said, it's primarily here for seeding, and therefore it's not so important if AI gets too good.
Which it will.
Which it probably will.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I actually have I'm not like at this point, I'm perhaps not as convinced as other people about, and certainly not as convinced as some of those CEOs of the big AI companies.
Sure.
About how desperately world-changing AI is about to be.
Yeah.
I expect that over time it probably will change things. But I'm not so impressed by what it can do right now. Right now, it seems to be an excellent tool for plagiarism, but I don't see any particularly great intelligence coming from it. Like I see rephrasing of pre-existing material.
Yeah.
So just, rephrasing and a little bit like combining. And I use it like fairly regularly for coding, and most of the time what it suggests, unless like it's relatively trivial, what it suggests is nonsense, and sometimes it's like kind of disturbing nonsense.
Yeah. We use it at the Coos a lot, especially for like inspiring copy titles, things like that.
Yeah.
We use it for our thumbnails to create images and whatnot. Yeah. And the thing is, we're using it more and more, which is crazy. Have you come across that Gavin Wood chatbot that's trained on our interviews?
No.
It's on Twitter. You haven't seen the AI agent?
Uh-uh.
Oh my God.
I don't look at Twitter too much.
Oh no? There's a bot. It's called Gavin Wood, and it's walking around commenting on a bunch of people's. It's very positive, and he always comes around and says. He's always talking about getting back down to the core protocol and building something
Really?
that's really worth it in this world. It's kind of nice.
Very good.
Yeah. Okay, you haven't seen that. Actually, I see.
Yeah. So,
the tattoo dim. Yeah.
Yeah. The point is that you provide evidence of the tattoo.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things like this. This in and of itself just demonstrates that someone probably got a tattoo. That's not so useful, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there are two key things. First one is the tattoo that there is evidence of must be a specific tattoo, a unique tattoo that the blockchain determines.
Yeah, I remember you were showing that. It kind of generates patterns.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It generates patterns based upon some unique identifier that's randomly selected.
Cool.
In fact, it gives you a choice of several different unique identifiers, and then you can select the one that you most like. But because they're all unique, and we have like billions and billions and billions of unique designs, it's even though you get the choice of like 100 different designs, all 100 are still unique to you, and no one else will ever get given any of those 100 options.
Got it.
Which means if you see a tattoo being done with that design, it's a design meant for you and not for someone else. Right? That's your design. It doesn't know who you are. Right? It has no idea like what your name is or anything like this, but it does know that that's your design, and that you as a person or as an agent that has come to this game was given this, and no one else will ever be given the same thing. And the second thing is that the tattoo has to be done at a specific place on the body. Why? Well, because everyone only has that one place on their body. There is one place per person. And once you have a tattoo done on that place, you can't get a second tattoo done on the place, right? I mean, not without going through tattoo removal process.
What place is it?
Yet to be absolutely finalized.
Okay.
But our initial research suggests that on the inside of the arm of the left arm, top inside of left arm would be the least controversial or whatever.
Sure.
Least negative place to have tattoos done.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Probably there.
Right here.
Yeah. Mainly because you can't see it.
Unless you want to show it
body
off.
positions, unless you want to show it off.
Yeah.
And it's on the left arm, which most people prefer to take risky behavior on the right arm.
Okay.
And it's not too painful on the fleshy bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, apparently if you go on, like, for example, the back of the neck or whatever, it's pretty bad. I don't have any tattoos there, so I can't really say. Okay, so these rules combined together mean that a single person could get one unique tattoo design in that place. So if you see evidence of that design being done in that place, and obviously no other designs in that place, then it's reasonable to assume that this is a unique person that you haven't seen before.
So I want to enter this chat room. This chat room accepts dim1 persons. I present my evidence, or I have some sort of hash on chain that says I have been.
So the system looks after everything, telling you, giving the options of the tattoo designs, showing you exactly where it needs to be, providing you a PDF, even to take to the tattoo artists to tell them exactly what they need to do, prompting you to make the evidence, to submitting the evidence in a decentralized file repository on chain.
Cool.
To giving you notifications about how the on-chain oracle is judging your evidence.
Which is other persons?
Which is other persons.
Oh,
There's an on-chain oracle made of proven people.
Any incentive to even look at this? And
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's treasury funded, but
oops.
So we have to put the proposal in. But yes, my desire is to have a number of different incentives in this system, for the simple reason that I think that personhood is a very core attribute to be able to provide to accounts on chain.
Yeah.
That will essentially raise the water for all of the various DApp and parachain boats in the, certainly in the Polkadot ecosystem, but also hopefully wider into the Web3 world.
All right. So that's DIM 1.
That's DIM 1.
I don't have any tattoos. I'd have to really think about it.
I didn't either.
Oh, really? That was your first?
Until Kappa Sigma Mu.
How serious is Jtron about Polkadot? Okay. But perhaps there are other DIMs. You've teased 2. Can you talk about them yet? Do you want to talk about those games yet? Overviews? Yeah, I can give property overviews. Okay.
So DIM 2 is under development, under later stages of development. DIM 1 is essentially finished, and we're just waiting for the various infrastructure pieces to fall into place before launch. The classic, SDK has to be up to this version, and we need to roll out and start this chain.
Okay. Oh my God. We'll save it for open dev. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay.
DIM 2, as I say, it's in sort of quite heavy development, particularly the front end. The idea of DIM 2 is to make it very accessible, much more so than the tattoo thing. To make it easy and to avoid any physical requirements on individuals. It's susceptible to generative AI disruption.
Okay.
So it's, again, probably not going to be something that is going to be around for many years. I would tentatively guess 2 to 3 years, given the current state of AI. And it's not that AI couldn't possibly already break it. It's that it just wouldn't be economically worthwhile for anyone to, you always got to compare AI to a human. Right? It's because at the moment they're spending, vast amounts on training and a little bit on inference in order to give you the AI responses. And as long as it's just basically rephrasing Wikipedia for people that can't be asked to just type in their fucking search to Google or Wikipedia, it's it's fine. The inference cost is relatively small. But as I understand it, over time, that inference cost is probably going to increase, at which point you really do have to compare it to someone who is actually just a capable Googler.
Right.
To give you a reasoned response.
To be fair, human labor can be pretty cheap.
Indeed. And I think the same goes with our DIM mechanisms. It's yes, AI could theoretically generate a video feed on a photo of a tattoo being done, or what we need to do for DIM 2. But if you paid someone, I don't know, in various parts of the world $1 to do this for 5 minutes. Maybe not the tattoo, but for DIM 2, where there's no physical alterations needed. They're probably going to take the $1 and just do it. It takes 5 minutes. Why would they not?
Okay. So what is it, DIM 2?
Oh, well, I'm not going to go into what it actually is.
I'll
talk about its properties.
Okay. What?
So it's
is it important to keep it a secret, or is it just that it's still being thought out, still under development?
It is under development, and my main concern is just that it's the intention is really to try and make this a sort of Web3 thing. And I fear that there's a lot of copycat projects in this industry. It's if one chain does something.
I heard of that one chain that's kind of coming around to some Polkadot ideas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Bavarium or something. I don't know. I don't know. There's some sort of unified native rollup thing. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
Interesting.
it's really cool.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sorry. So the properties.
So the idea is that it's easy, it's low commitment, it's as simple as installing an app.
Oh.
5 minutes every month, 5-10 minutes every month of your time,
Yeah.
and you can get this identifier.
Oh.
As I say, it is susceptible to AI disruption, but probably not in the next few years. I think. Say as like 2 to 3 years, maybe at the earliest. That's when costs come down enough that it's not just worth paying someone somewhere to $1 to do it for you.
Okay. So I'm interacting with an app for 5 minutes a month in order to qualify as a person.
Yeah.
Okay, I could imagine a few things I would do with an app that would, yeah.
And I mean, once you got personhood, it's like, okay, would they really do this? Like, what's in it for the individual? I mean, and this is where like the benefits I think are kind of interesting, because we can talk about like airdrops, right? Community building is always going to be a big deal. Yeah, people want users, and I would hope that a lot of dApps out there in Web3 actually are relevant to people. Like, they just need to get people through the door. And in order to get people through the door, they do things like airdrops, but most airdrops are wildly inefficient because it's really hard to airdrop to individuals.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a good individuality mechanism.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, and everybody suffers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So inevitably, like, you might give out, I don't know, $10 million in your airdrop, right, worth of tokens, but 95% of that $10 million go to like 100 accounts.
I know. Yeah.
Or even worse, like they go to like 1,000 accounts, but actually it turns out only 50 people, because each of those 50 people have like 25 accounts each.
Yeah, totally.
They just have to have a lot of coins.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a big issue for community builders out there. Getting citizens who with an easy funnel to being given airdrops and other incentivization mechanisms for actually utilizing systems.
Sure.
They don't necessarily have to be airdrops. They can be reward earn.
Like play to earn. Yeah.
Play to earn.
Sure, yeah.
Or learn to earn, or
all this stuff.
all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's all very helpful to be able to build communities. So I think this is like one of the key things. I think also as I mentioned, like forums, this sort of thing, also going to be very helpful. Alternative governance mechanisms. I think like lotteries potentially also. Simple. NFT. I've got a few other things that mostly thinking like NFTs, but NFTs that are maybe kind of useful, maybe within a not very nice game. So I'm thinking like how it could maybe, we see Polkadot increasingly being used for gaming.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, again, games, especially massively multiplayer games.
Yeah, right.
They need to get people in. It's and they're happy to give away free in-game assets if they get more people in.
Oh,
the trick is, how do you find who is a person? Like, how do you hand these out in a limited amount to individuals? It's like, you can insist that they give a credit card. Oh, we're not going to charge you yet. But does anyone? I never do that. Because I don't want my credit card number. And then in crypto, it's even more like this, because it's like,
that's cool.
You can't give a credit card number in crypto.
That's a cool the game as a context is cool, or a social media network as a context, right? Yeah. That's cool.
So it's like, airdrops, community building, the community bootstrapping, very, very important. And I think just having amassing this community, this base community, from which you can then, bring this community to specific applications, use cases, games, environments, worlds, can be very, very advantageous.
Okay, so that's a little overview of DIM 2. I'm not going to even ask you about DIM 3 because you didn't give me much there. But DIM 3, go ahead.
DIM 3, property-wise, it's more commitment. It's the only one of the three that is absolutely AI resistant.
Wow.
And probably in the fullness of time, it will be the only possible individuality mechanism. I mean, unless you want to decentralized individuality. If you want to go the WorldCoin route and just hey, here, have a skin
take some
graft,
blood, exactly,
do some nice DNA analysis.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, if we, you ever see this show Demolition Man?
I know. I never saw.
No, it's a great film. Like,
Yeah. Tell me.
watch Demolition Man.
Okay.
It's an old Sylvester Stallone film. I think it's Sylvester.
Yeah. Right.
Right. It's set in the future. There's a very gruesome scene at the beginning where there's a security mechanism that works based on the retina of one's eyeball, right? Similar to what WorldCoin uses, to check if someone's an individual or not. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go too much into specifically what happens in the scene, but I will say that biometrics have their disadvantages, and I wouldn't necessarily say that using them for a supposedly democratic outcome is such a good idea.
Someone might be motivated to remove the eyeball of somebody
With a biro pen.
I've always thought about this, with fingerprints and whatnot. All you need is somebody's finger. It's not even, you could put that in your pocket. Yeah, easy. Okay. From dim to grim.
From dim to grim.
Speaking of, people die.
That's true, they do. Yes.
So, how does the system know?
Dim 1, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't yet. There is some possibility that maybe in time we require people to resubmit evidence of the tattoo every year or so.
Okay.
Dim 2 and Dim 3 are ongoing DIMs, which means you have to resubmit evidence every month. If you stop resubmitting evidence, then essentially the confidence that you're an individual drops.
Yeah.
And once it drops below that threshold, then we assert that you are not an individual, and therefore all of your citizenship is essentially revoked. So if you die, then basically you stop with the Dim 2 and Dim 3, and your account is marked as not.
It's a weak chance that they're.
Yeah, it basically becomes dead.
Got it. Okay. This is an amazing addition to Web3. We talked about all these use cases that we can unlock. The real world, existing world, is kind of catching up to the possible uses of blockchain, especially when it comes to efficiency. We had Elon Musk with his, about his Doge thing? Department of Government Efficiency?
Yes, not at all linked to a certain cryptocurrency, I'm sure.
Honestly, it's just too funny. He put out a call. He wants to understand blockchain technology that could assist them creating more efficiency, possibly putting things like ID on chain. What do you think about that? About your creation being used in this older context, this real world that we need to function, and actually we suffer for it when it functions poorly.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this?
I mean, it's what it's made for.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the purpose of government, really, at its basic level, is to execute rules agreed upon by the population.
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, the problem is, of course, that it's people that are meant to be executing those rules, and they generally are quite biased and selective over how and when and in what priority they execute. Whereas not a machine, but rather if we codify those rules in a more unambiguous fashion and provide a means of executing them in an open and transparent manner, such that we can all check how those rules, but that those rules are indeed executed correctly.
Yeah.
Then we have we do what government was always meant to do, but we do it in a way that's much more in keeping with its original intent. Bitcoin demonstrated that, it can, in a very basic way, do what a central bank, a portion of government, was meant to do. And I don't look upon the central bank as a very particular or a very special part of government. I think, blockchain can be used not just for the central bank functionality, but for all sorts of other basically all functionality of government.
Yeah.
I would deeply like to see a state. I don't know about the United States, something quite so big, but I would deeply like to see, initially at least, a smallish state actually starting to bring in blockchain-based systems, decentralized, open, transparent systems as a means of implementing those rules that its population have decided they want to live by.
Well, look, I mean, obviously I respect the modesty and starting small and whatnot, but if it's the case that the United States is looking to update their 1950s technology to something that's available today,
Yeah.
I don't want it on XRP or whatever bullshit we have.
No.
Whatever can be taken over in 20 years by intelligent, highly capitalized people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want it on something like we're doing over here.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you've seen that graph of like the Nakamoto coefficient.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's like a clear entrant that would be that should be winning this
What
contract.
What would you say the qualities of what we've been building over here? What are the qualities that would be positive for an application like the United States, something like that?
Well, I mean, the United States needs scale, resilience, robustness, and very, very good decentralization. And yeah, I think on all of those, Polkadot is at the top.
Yeah,
So,
it is. Yeah.
yeah, I would probably go for Polkadot.
Do you think, like, at those scales, are these games solid enough to resist censorship at those sort of scales?
Well, I mean, this is why I say maybe try with a slightly smaller state.
Grow into it, yeah.
Taking the world's superpower. I mean, the issue is, of course, that an attacker, almost unlimited financial, like a government level attacker with
like Russia,
almost
like
unlimited,
or something like that.
Right.
We're talking huge, yeah.
with almost unlimited financial resources and a strategic competitor that might want to disrupt or in some way corrupt the system. And I mean, it's not that these systems are weak, or at least it's not that Bitcoin, Polkadot, right?
Yeah.
Are weak systems.
No.
They are strong. They're doing very well
Yes,
in
they
the
are.
wild. But if we look at the economies that they're protecting, they're still fairly small compared to the US economy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, I guess, like, when it comes to an application like this, they could also use the technology, but in a more centralized, controlled way. They
It's
don't.
true.
You know
they
what
could
I mean?
ripple it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's true, and they probably will. I mean, this is what banks did, right? It's like banks. Oh no, we hate all this stuff. We hate Ethereum. We hate this Bitcoin stuff. We hate the decentralization. We'll take the technology. We'll just run it on our own servers.
Yeah.
But it makes it more resilient as an internal system.
Exactly,
Than running it on one server
Right.
or a couple servers with like some failovers. And it's like that's how they look upon it. Right, they look upon it as basically a database with a failover on steroids. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they're doing. Have you heard about the Mandala project?
Mandala.
They're kind of doing this interesting hybrid program where they have like some centralized servers, but they're going to interact on the parachain.
Cool.
They can all work together. Yeah, it's so cool, right?
Yeah. I mean,
But yeah, some things are centralized and kept in the government's control and authority, and other things are open.
Yeah, and I think this sort of hybrid, the blockchain manages process, but the actors, the participants in the process, of which the government probably have many, are still like heavily centralized and partisan.
Yeah, right.
And I think, this is like a hybrid model, and probably has some value in the near term.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for coming on. That was a cool discussion.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, we'll get some more thoughts about it, and we'll wait for the tattoos to roll out, and then the app, and then whatever Tim 3 is, and have a good time. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Me too. Cheers.